Alright, hey, what's up, guys? It's Tyler. So, the guy I cook with, he's my coworker, Billy. He, he encouraged me to pick up this game, Kerbal Space Program. So, I found it for $5 on cdkeys.com. And, I'm just going to jump into it. I know you build spaceships. That's about it. That's about all I know about it. This already looks fantastic. Excited to bring you 10th anniversary update of the Kerbal Space Program. We're adding more content than ever this time, and we'll be celebrating KSP's anniversary in style with new features and content packed in. So let's get to it. Two major new apps available. The new Maneuver Creator app lets you quickly generate transfer to our celestial bodies, see upcoming transfer windows, and get a good understanding of where you're going and how much Delta V it will take to get there. Okay. Unity Analytics. Collect certain personal data. Okay, yeah, yeah, that's fine. See if we can full screen this. This is kind of egregious. Display Kerbin time. Alright, cool. That's a little bit of settings, took about 2 minutes. Moon, or bust. Training, start new, resume saved. I don't have it saved. Training? Okay. Career mode, sandbox, science. Enables comms. Um, I'm going to regret playing on normal, but we're just going to play normal. I'm Gene Kerman, flight director and your guide for this quick introduction. This is the Space Center. From here you can manage all aspects of the space program. Feel free to have a look around. Oh god. What am I even looking at? Vehicle assembly, R&D, astronaut complex, space plane hangar. Hi, I'm Werner von Kerman, Chief Rocketry Engineer. This is Spaceplane Hangar. Here's where we build spacecraft that later will take off from the runway. On your left, you find components to construct your own space plane. Select a starting part, then attach others to it to build. I don't have anything to build fucking spacecrafts with. I'll just a command pod. Leave. Let's go to R&D. Basic rocketry. Engineering. Decoupler. Not enough science. Okay. Admin building? Unpaid research program. Appreciation campaign. Aggressive negotiations. Tracking station. And here you can view all the solar system as well as current positions and trajectories of all ongoing missions. You have missions in progress. You'll see them listed at the panel on your left. Sometimes contracts may require specific destinations in orbit or the surface. Those will be visible there. Lastly, if you want to see this map viewed during flight, just hit the M key. The moon. Briefing: one of the founding principles of Kerbal World First Record Keeping Society is to continue to advance the frontiers of science. We still have unchecked items on our list of records to break and would like to change that, but here there's no sense in us talking while there's science to be done. Shall we get to it? Give us a quick crew report before launching. It's fine if any of the lights on the control panel are flashing, just give it a swift kick. We'd like to officially start off the space program with a bang, a very controlled bang preferably. Launch your first vessel off the launch pad or the runway to achieve this goal. One of the founding principles of Kerbal, the world's first... Oh, yeah. Administration says that legally we cannot call ourselves a space program without actually going to space. Okay, I can't just accept them all, but I got 2. Originally built as a placeholder for a demonstration mock-up of a rocket, the Mk-1 command pod was heralded as a far safer and more reliable option than its predecessors by rocket scientists throughout the world. It is now commonly seen in active service. Okay, well that's groovy. The RT-5 Fleece Solid Fuel Booster. While considered by some to be little more than a trash bin full of boom, the RT-5 can be seen and used in many space programs, perhaps possibly because it is the only option for many space programs. But nevertheless, the small booster provides a nice kick to lift small payloads to considerable heights. Use with caution, though. Once its solid fuel motors cannot be put out, the fuel runs out. Okay. What's this? Modular girder segment. New. Build a structure of your dreams with the Maxwell Construction Toys modular girder segment. Basic fin. The simple bolt on an aluminum fin may not be cutting edge of aerospace engineering, but is dirt cheap and will make your rocket slightly less unstable. Science. Mystery Goo Containment Unit. This unit was something one of our engineers came up with on a dumpster dive in while researching alternative applications for existing technologies. It is a sealed container which appears to be filled with strange-looking substance. We couldn't reach in or break the canister open, but watching how the goo behaves when subjected to different situations could be very educational. And utility. Mk-16 parachute. Might be considered by some to be a little more than random stitching together of surplus parts it is, in fact, made from, but the fact remains that Mk-16 has been widely accepted as a generally better alternative to being in freefall. What's cargo? The EVA jetpack. The EVA jetpack has been a workhorse of Kerbal astronauts for decades. It has been so useful that some Kerbals have taken to wearing them inside the complex back home and even in their showers. It gives unparalleled mobility in space, and low-gravity environments can be tricky to master. Incidents of injury while using one have dropped to nearly 10% after sufficient training. Personal parachute. Kerbal size ram air parachute is perfect for saving intrepid pilots from misconsidered aircraft design or hijinks involving the top of the VAB and hopefully functional autopilot. Why should Kerbals put their trust in something that was found lying by the side of the road? Well, because there wasn't a Kerbal-shaped crater next to it. Still neat. Oh god, what am I doing? To clarify, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. This looks like garbage, and I think they're all going to die. Bet. Bill and Bob Kerman. Jebediah Kerman. Whoa. That looks cool. Just go launch it. I don't think I have it set to do anything, so... Does that boat no longer exist? Refunded. It didn't even launch. Dude, what the fuck is going on? Revert to vehicle assembly. Can I do that? Awesome. And we're sticking our rocket on the bottom of this for good luck. Fuck it. Okay. How do I fucking make it launch? Alright, I'll fucking bite. Training. The tutorial presented by the famous rocket scientist Werner von Karman himself covers the basics of rocket construction. In the vehicle assembly building, he's waiting for you down there and is always in high demand. Don't dally. Welcome to today's lecture on vessel construction. I'm Werner von Karman. Whether you want to put a satellite in orbit, make a transcontinental flight, or step onto the very surface of the moon, you're going to need to build yourself a ship. It should be pretty easy if you're not a famous rocket scientist like myself, even if you're not. In this tutorial, I will show you around the Kerbal Space Center. Take you to the vehicle assembly building where you'll learn how to construct a simple ship. We'll cover adding and removing parts, what the parts do, how to change the performance settings of the parts, which have that option, and how to control staging. That's the part I need to know. At the end of this tutorial, you have to have a craft fit for a quick hop from the launch pad. At each step, I will lock out all controls other than the ones you need for the step. If you still manage to mess up, it took even me some time to become as skilled as I am now. You press the back button to go and fix things. It won't light up unless you do mess up. Right now at the Kerbal Space Center, I'll give you a quick rundown on how to get around. KSC for short is home to the pinnacle of Kerbal endeavor and achievements for space exploration. Using the facilities you can see here, you will be able to manage your space program, create rockets and planes, track your Kerbal explorers as they roam the solar system, find exciting new uses for explosive substances, And in case of emergency, hire more Kerbals. To find out about each of the facilities, you can hover your mouse over them, or the facility buttons. They show up when the cursor is outside the window. If you need to repair a structure or upgrade them in the career, you can do this by right-clicking them. Take some time to hover over the building to see what each of them are. Okay. So that's kind of what I did do. Enter the vehicle assembly building. Very good. What you see in the middle of the screen is the construction area. This is where parts are placed and your craft is constructed. On the left side of the screen is the parts toolbox. It will show all the parts you have available in each of the different categories. Once there are any to pick, that is. You want the craft to be controllable, you need a command module, and it's best to make it the first part you place. The part will either contain some plucky Kerbal crew or is an automated pilot mechanism. As we're just starting, there's only one choice. Go ahead and pick up the command module from the Pods tab. You'd like your pilot to be able to make more than one flight. He or she will have to return safely to the ground or water on Kerbin. Parachutes are a simple way to make sure that happens. They can be found on the Utility tab. Change tabs by clicking their icons on the left part of the list window. Go ahead and select the MK16 parachute. Then move it to the top of the command pod so the green sphere at the bottom of the parachute lines up with the green sphere at the top of the pod. Okay. Some parts like our parachute here have configurable options. To see those, we need to right click on the parachute. Do that now and you will see the available parameters. The parachute, you will see that you can adjust our altitude and the atmospheric pressure at which to open. That setting can be quite useful in distant worlds. For now, let's check that the opening height on the chute is at least 1,000 meters. Because safety is the Kerbal way after all. For the minimum pressure slider, move it a bit to the right to 0.2. Is about 9 kilometers in altitude. So even if you stage early and arm the parachute, it will wait until then to activate. Click on the Engines tab on the left to show the available engine and the solid rocket motors. You're just starting out. You're not a famous rocket scientist. To make the craft survivable as it stands, you have to be better at rocket science than me. Ha, impossible. The problem with this craft is that the solid rocket is too powerful for the payload a single small pod and chute. It will either burn up or sink from going too fast. or burn up coming back down. Even if you survive that, the craft's mass will cause it to fall too fast for the parachute to operate properly, and you'd hit the surface before it can stop you. Okay, I promise to teach you how to change that to make it work in a later tutorial, but for now, let's continue. Well, at least this way, I get to tell you about removing parts. Pick up the BACC thumper and either drop it or delete it. Let's add the solid motor that's a better match for the size of the ship. At the start of your career, you will have what I consider rubbish parts. Literally, the motor here looks like. It may well be a converted trash can. That said, it does have enough oomph to get this little craft moving skyward, and quickly. As you progress, you will be able to unlock more engines and other parts. For now, though, let's pick up the RT-5 flea and connect it to the bottom of the pod. Okay. Nice one. You built the simplest survivable craft possible. Could go launch this right now, but it might be safer to explain one other thing first. On the bottom right, you will see the staging stack. It is the box with the number 0 and icons for the parachute and engine in it. The stack shows us which parts will be activated as we stage our rocket. What this shows is when we activate the next stage, both the engine and the parachute will be triggered. While it could be considered funny to open the chute and fire the motor at the same time, it's not going to give you much flight. To fix this, we need to separate the engine and chute into 2 stages. If you mouse over the 0 stage, you will see a little plus appear to the left of the box. Click the plus to add a new stage. If you add too many, click the minus ones and make sure you have precisely 2 stages. Excellent. It's important to note the stages activate from the highest number and then count down. So our first stage should be stage 1, the engine, and our second will be stage 0, the chute. Drag the engine from 0 to 1 to give our pilot some comfort. That's it. We now have a safe, well, relatively safe craft that's ready to go. Let's make sure that if we need this design again, we don't have to build it all from scratch. At the top of your screen, you will see the name for our craft. Untitled Spacecraft doesn't seem so majestic. Why don't you change it to something more your style? You can add a description if you'd like to. When you're happy with the name, click on the save and okay. Small flea tutorial spacecraft. Feel free to play around with the parts and techniques I've showed you. When you're ready to continue, press the red button in the upper right to exit. Back at the training menu, try Flight Basics tutorial to learn how to fly this little craft, and the Intermediate Construction tutorial to teach you more about the editor. Basic flight. Learn the basics of flying a spacecraft in KSP. In this tutorial, flight instructor Gene Kerman will take you through the essential flight controls and instruments required for a simple hopper that you built in Construction Basics. Welcome to the Kerbal Space Center Launch Facility. I'm Gene Kerman, and I will teach you the basics of piloting a spacecraft. I trust you've already checked the basic construction tutorial. If not, I recommend you do so before going through this one. Today we will do a run through of our important controls for your spacecraft. Our little hopper from your basic construction lesson with Werner may not have all of them, but we'll do a full run through once and see how it flies. Flying a spacecraft is all about being in control of a generally well chaotic situation. As a pilot, your main flight controls will affect the pitch, yaw, and roll of the ship. Let's look at those first. All the other controls will be locked until they're needed, or this tutorial is closed. Pitch, yaw, and roll are 3 directions you will rotate your craft. To help you visualize these, we've taken a holiday snap of the hopper below. Pitch, roll, and yaw. It's like X, Y, Z. Okay. Throttle plus pitch, yaw, and roll are the main controls you need to master for a successful crash-free flight. I'll skip over to throttle control for now, as this vessel has no need for it. Don't worry, I'll explain another time when it's of use. Remember that all these controls have a limited amount of effectiveness, so bigger, heavier ships will probably respond much more sluggishly to the controls than a little small one. It's also good to keep in mind that as stages are separated from the ship, it will become lighter, and this will usually mean it's easier to control. In flight, all the planning you put into staging sequence of your ship comes into play. From launch to the final deployment of the descent parachute, you can control the activation of several of the ship's parts by activating stages. Space, launch, activate next stage. Just hit the space bar. Notice the stage indicator on the lower left. It shows the currently active stage. Since we haven't launched it yet, it shows the first stage is active. Have your staging controls locked for now, so the stage indicator is glowing purple. One more thing on staging. If the staging setup is causing strife or you change your mind about something, you can edit the stage sequence on the fly. Pun intended, no need to go back to the assembly facility. An important part of flying is knowing how your ship is oriented and where it's going. That's why a good pilot is always aware of the ship's attitude, where it's pointing, and its velocity vector, where it's going. These aren't always the same direction, and as your skills improve, you should pick up on these. The big round instrument on the lower center of the screen is called the nav ball. This device sums up the most critical information needed for proper death-free flight. Here you can see the ship's nose in relation to the horizon. When you're not pointing straight up, it's easily visible as a line between blue sky and a brown ground, as well as its heading, compass, bearing, and speed. You also get several icons that indicate things like your current velocity vector, but we'll have a look at those later. Top center part of the screen, you have your altimeter, vertical speed indicator, and atmosphere gauges. The altimeter will show the distance to the planet's surface at sea level. This means the actual surface may be much closer, so watch out for the ground when landing. Your vertical speed indicator shows how quickly your altitude is changing. When launching, it's considered best to keep this gauge pointing up. The atmosphere gauge indicates how deep this ship is in the planet's atmosphere. This helps you know if the ship is high enough for orbiting without losing speed to air resistance, or judge how effective wings and control surfaces will be. One last thing before we give this rocket the green light. In the staging stack, you can see the indicator for your parachute. This indicator shows when the chute will be activated by staging. You already know that. But the background will also change to indicate when it is safe to stage the parachute, and the foreground, the parachute bit of the icon itself, will change color depending on the parachute state. Note, however, that by default parachutes will not deploy when unsafe, even if you stage them. The left 3 show safety, safe, risk, and unsafe. So, safe, risky, unsafe. The right 3 show state after staging. Armed, deployed, and cut shredded. Unlock the flight controls, you're clear for launch. At any time you may press escape to pause the game. Salt and motor is burned out. You're passing a patch that's the highest point of your flight. Your speed is low enough that it's safe to stage again to deploy the parachute. Now we sit back and enjoy the descent. Aha, you're a curious one, aren't you? The IVA button over each crew member's portrait will let you see the ship from his own perspective. Note that in this mode, your flight UI has less instruments, as most of them can be found in the cockpit itself. Internal view right-clicking will toggle between mouse look and interactive modes, so you can look around without having to hold down the right mouse buttons. Try looking around and clicking on things. The engineering department says that there are many devices in here that actually work. They seem to be quite proud of that, in fact. Well, there are multiple crew. You could cycle through the POV of them using the V key. Well done, you survived your first quick flight. When you landed or splashed on Kerbal and not in training, you can point the mouse just above the altimeter and click the recover button on the panel that slides down to ask to be picked up. I've also unlocked the crew hatch, so if you feel like going out for a walk or swim, you can click the EVA extra vehicular activity button that will pop up when you mouse over the portrait of the Kerbal you want to take for a walk. This concludes today's lesson. To exit training, press escape to access the pause menu and choose end scenario. Hope to see you again to learn more about the suborbital flight, perhaps. Okay. A little weird. Intermediate construction. Hello again, glad you could come back. To get started, go and head into VAB, and I'll give you the overview of what we're building today. You remember in our last construction tutorial, we covered on how to build a simple hopper and some of the basics of the construction area. This tutorial will expand your knowledge of some of the more useful features in the VAB, and will build a more complex craft that will be able to get us out of the atmosphere. To build our new design, let's start with the craft we built in the basic construction tutorial. Though this one is just called Hopper, this will save us a little bit of time, and the accounting department is always happy when we save on time. Click the open in the right corner and load the hopper, then remove its RT5 flea motor. If you mess up, you can recreate the craft in the part list by placing a pod first and parachute on top of it. Note that throughout this tutorial I will leave all the parts you need available to be placed. You delete this craft file somehow, close the load dialog and open it again, and the craft will be back. Like last time, we won't be bringing the whole vessel back, so we can change our parachute stats from what we used before. Right click on the parachute and verify its deployment altitude set to 1,000 meters as last time. We'll set the minimum pressure slider all the way up to the right. 0.75 atmospheres, corresponding to an altitude on the Kerbal of about 2 kilometers. It means as much as short time hanging around during descent. Change the name of our craft and description if you want, so that we still have our trash can special for later on. Simply change the name to something other than Hopper and we can proceed. Craft. Great. For this craft, we are going to give the ship some additional purpose by attaching a science experiment. We can run these experiments during our travels and get valuable science data for a Kerbal kind. There are a number of science experiments to be performed, but at the moment we only have the mystery goo containment unit available. Switch to Science tab to look at it. It's one of the most basic scientific experiments Kerbal scientists have devised, and one of the first things they want to try and understand better. I mean, they don't even know what color the goo is. You pick up the part you want to see, you will see that it's designed to attach to the sides of other parts. Radially, if we attach one of these, then during flight our craft will be unbalanced. One way to solve this is to add extra goo container on the opposite side of the rocket so they balance. Luckily we have a symmetry tool to help here. These buttons control symmetry, highlighting, and angle snapping can be found in the lower left of the screen. Press the symmetry button or press the X key to cycle through the various symmetry modes. Set this to 2 times and then pick up the place a mystery goo containment unit on the side of the pod, near the top. If we add too many more parts here, the craft we are making will be too heavy to survive re-entry safely. Too heavy to be slowed by our parachute, leading to sudden impact syndrome, so we will need to add a decoupler below the pod. Decouplers can be found in the coupling tab. and will let us split the craft when no longer need the lower parts. We won't be able to recover the discarded parts, but at least our craft and our Kerbal will survive re-entry and landing. Decouplers can be used in many ways, but for now, let's just add one of these to the bottom of the pod. Go to the coupling tab, grab a TD12 and place it. The stacked decouplers have arrows. The arrows show which side that decouples. Make sure your decoupler's arrows is pointed up towards the pod. It will be by default. Well done. You'll recall, I hope, that in the previous tutorial we adjusted the staging stack when we added the engine to our earlier rocket. When you add a decoupler, the extra stage is automatically added to the stack so that any new parts below the decoupler won't be staged at the same time as those above it. You can, of course, still move these all around, but hopefully this will save you some time as you go. If you ever want to return to default staging step, click the reset button at the bottom of the staging stack. This time we're going to use a liquid propellant rocket engine. Unlike solid rocket motors, these engines don't carry their own propellants with them, so we need to add some fuel tanks. Go to fuel tanks, we are still using these earlier parts, so there are only FLT 100s available. This is in another area like engines where advancement brings bigger and better parts. You're going to need 5 of these tanks to get us to space. Before you grab 5 tanks from the target pool box, let me give you another tip. Because efficiency is my middle name, it goes right after Vaughn. Once you place the first tank on the rocket, you can duplicate that by holding left Alt key and clicking on the tank. You can do this on the bottom of the tank a few times and quickly get 5 of these attached without having to go back to the toolbox. Good. Switch over to the engines tab now. The swivel engine you see here is obviously different from the flea we used before. This is a liquid engine and it burns both liquid fuel and oxidizer. Funnily enough, that's what we just added to the rocket. Attach the LVT-45 swivel to the bottom of the rocket stack now. Keep an eye on the staging stack to see how it changes. We're almost there and you're doing fine. Maybe not as speedily as someone of my caliber, though. The last thing we'll need to do is give the rocket a little bit of stability so it keeps going the ways we want to. We'll achieve this by adding some fins near the bottom of the fin. Fins can be found in the Aerodynamics tab. Set the symmetry to 4 times so we place them on both axes. Also turn on angle snap. Excellent, we now got a rocket that will let us reach for the stars. Admittedly, I did say reach for, as this basic rocket, which can't achieve orbit. But on the bright side, this means re-entry will also be basic. You've done a great job in building a basic hopper and a sub-orbit capable rocket. Hopefully you learned a few things about how to build a craft and how to use some of the shortcuts that are here. Feel free to hang around a bit and try your hand at other things too. Perhaps you can look at your next lesson on suborbital flight, where we will see just how well the rocket performs. Or head over to the science tutorial to learn how to advance your career and unlock more parts. If you show yourself out of the construction facility with the red buttons on top right when you're done experimenting, that'd be great. Auf Wiedersehen. Auf Wiedersehen. The vessels you create here will be lost when you exit. This is just for playing around. That's a lot of fucking parts. This is a lot of video game here. Kind of launch this thing. Tai Kawamata in the chat says, "Oh, stinku binku." Flying a rocket. What? Fly. Dumb. Suborbital flight. Oh, again, glad you could make it back. Today we'll be taking an exciting step, getting our first Kerbal into space. Yep, with a capital S. Hopefully you can remember the controls we discussed in the basic flight tutorial, but don't forget that you can always press escape and click the view key bindings button for a reminder. If you're ready, let's get started. What the fuck? Your mission today is to make a short suborbital, less than orbital flight out of the water to the east. It's a nice arcing path and ensures a gentle survivable re-entry. Straight up through straight down is not so good for survival. I've set up the pink target indicator on the nav ball as aim point, but do note that this is not the case for normal missions. The target marker is normally used for other things and does not help with ascents. Starting with the nose pointing straight up at the launch pad or 90 degrees elevation from the eastern horizon. So you reach burnout, we will have time to discuss a bit more other things. Tilt east to 80 degrees elevation on the nav ball. Tilt east 70 degrees by 400 meters. Alright, whatever. Like the Hopper, this new craft has liquid fuel engines. This means we can use throttle to set the output of the ship's engines. Throttle is controlled by the following keys. Left shift, throttle up. Left control, throttle down. Z's max throttle, X is throttle cutoff. Try these out now, but you see the indicator slide up and down the graph below. SAS stands for Stability Augmentation System, although Kerbal astronauts usually refer to it as Sickness Avoidance Scheme. Whatever it stands for, what it does, try to stop the ship from spinning around. Use the computer-controlled auto-torque drive compensator technology to counteract the rotation of the ship. In its simplest mode, it will keep the ship aligned with the orientation it has when you turn SAS on, or if you pitch yaw roll while SAS is on, the orientation when you release the controls. SAS can be activated or deactivated if on momentarily by holding down the F key, and if it can be toggled by pressing the T key. If you have problems following the maneuvers once you enable SAS and lift off, you can click the small red button to the left of the nav ball. Miniature target indicator. It's the lower left of all the buttons. That will cause the SAS to follow the target indicator and fly for you. Note that autopiloting function will not be available until you are flying. Craft has a bit too much engine, so we're going to throttle down for launch. Set your throttle to 2/3. The upper. I'll turn on SAS. It will keep you pointed to where you. Okay. This game is confusing as fuck, dude. During the lesson, some of the information is quite detailed and can take a while to read, as this is a short suborbital hop and I don't want you to miss anything important. I'll place a warning at the top of the pages where you might want to pause the game to read. This will look like this. Warning, detailed info, press escape to pause if necessary. Okay, enough talk. I'll unlock the rest of the flight controls and you're clear to launch. At any time you may press escape to pause the game. In the pause menu you can restart the flight. Or end this tutorial and return to the main menu. I've enabled the target marker on the nav ball. Give it a look to make sure you can see it. And then let's get ready to light this candle. Double check your throttle set to 2/3. The upper of the two middle notches on the slider and SAS is enabled to hit space when you're ready. Remember to start turning at 50 meters a second. Sure. Get ready to turn further once you reach 250 meters a second. Looking good. Now let's turn a bit more. Try and get 70-degree pitch line. You can follow the marker as it moves there. So don't worry, we got the rocket just where it needs to be to reach space. You should be able to let SAS keep the craft steady for a while we accelerate forward. Now go ahead and throttle up to full power. Oops, looks like you're not going to clear the atmosphere. Press escape and choose revert flight to try again. Great work, you've succeeded in getting your ship on a trajectory bound for space. I've now set your target indicator to align with your velocity vector. That will minimize drag by turning the smallest side of the vehicle into the airflow. Somewhere around here you will see the nav ball speed indicator auto switch from surface to orbit. Accompanied by the speed number jumping, go ahead and switch it back to surface mode by clicking on it until it says surface. You might notice some flickering flames near the end of the burn there, which due to high speed of your craft in the atmosphere, normally our ascent would be a little slower. But I'm sure my friend Werner has helped you build a ship that can withstand this heat. Besides this heat and this slow, you'll be fine. If you have a look at your trajectory, you can switch to the map and look at your projected path again. Just remember to come back to flight mode again. Now we're coasting our way to Apopsis. That's the highest point on our current projected path. We've got a little time to chat. Would you clear the atmosphere? We'll go over what you can do in space. I think I broke it. Okay, let's try one more time. Still just rising. While we float up here beyond the atmosphere, I'll quickly tell you what a couple things you can do. In an advanced enough astronaut complex in the KSC, we can train our Kerbals to be able to spacewalk, or EVA, although we won't be doing this on this flight. Although when we are carrying science devices like our goo containers, we can perform experiments. Feel free to play with the goo canisters now by right-clicking on them. I'll let you know it's time for the next phase of the suborbital. I'll let you know when it's time for the next phase of the suborbital flight. Mystery goo observation while in space near Kerbin. The goo seems to have clumped up into a sphere. It also appears to become brittle. Inoperable after transmitting. Keep. You are now re-entering Kerbin's atmosphere. Make sure to keep all hands and feet inside the pod at all times. We don't want you getting burnt or anything. Don't mind the flames. Werner is a world-famous rocket scientist after all, and he's built his ship to withstand them. Last time we watched the parachute icon to wait for the right time to open the chute. This time we are going to do something a little different. Remember in the construction tutorial when you design this vessel, you set the chute to not semi-deploy until 0.75 atmospheres of pressure? That means the chute won't perform the first of its 2 deployment steps until then. Even if you activate it by staging now on Kerbal, 0.75 ATM means about 2,000 meters altitude above sea level, and the craft should be traveling slowly enough by then that the chute will survive deployment. So let's take the bold step arming the chute right now. Let's make the smarts hit there pop it at the right altitude. You can trust me, stage the chute now by pressing space. Really? Awesome. So when you say your chute and I actually semi-deploy around 2 kilometers, we do look out for you at mission control. We now ensure that the opening height is successful full deployment step is correct. You can adjust the parameters during flight, so right click on the parachute now and check their sliders. Don't touch the pressure slider or bad things will happen, and make sure the full deployment altitude is no less than 1,000 meters or you won't have enough time to slow down. Once you're satisfied, just hang on about 2 kilometers and watch the pressure trigger itself. If you look at the bottom of the capsule, note that you do not have a heat shield. You do not need one because this is such a gentle flight. Actually, a heat shield will make things more dangerous on this craft because the additional mass would be pushing the limits of the model on the parachute. What a fucking video game. Yes, the chute is away. Now enjoy a leisurely float down to the surface. Welcome back, and congratulations on completing and even surviving your first real mission. You managed to launch, control your vessel into space, and land safely. That's quite an achievement. In practice again, choose revert to launch from the space menu. Otherwise, in this scenario, be sure to check out the other tutorials. The next one is going for orbit, and that is really exciting. There's always a lot more to learn at the KSC. Alright, this game is a lot. It's so fucking much. But I enjoy it. I enjoy the aesthetic of it. So, hey, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you're still on, I'm going to stream some Balatro, because I don't think that hard to play Balatro. Less reading. So we'll continue this hype train over there. Until next time. May or may not play more Kerbal Space in the future.